What is up, everybody? This is Lyle with No Hippie Trucking and Transportation, and one of my boys at Prime has a YouTube channel. Name of that channel is Johnson's Logic. I'm at no place where I could put the iCard up here, but if you're interested in this topic that I'm going to be talking about, he's the one that kind of inspired me. He did a video basically saying what he would do different, or would he do things different if he started over at Prime. So I'm going to kind of piggyback on that with mistakes and regrets that I've made with Prime. Now, if you want to take a look at his video, just type in Johnson's Logic Prime. I'm sure his channel will come up. But as far as my mistakes and regrets, you know what? Some people are going to be like, he ain't got no mistakes, he ain't got no regrets. You know what? I do have some mistakes and some regrets. So let's start talking about the regrets. Now, some of you guys know that have been rocking with me for a while that I spent probably about 150,000 miles in TNT training over the course of about 7 months. And there's a reason I did it. At the time, the training was 30,000 miles, and I always like to be a little bit over prepared. So initially going into it, my plan was to do 50 to 60,000 miles. Now, back in the day, once you completed your 30,000 miles, Prime would pay you $1,000 to stay on your trainer's truck. So that was a little bit more motivation to stay on as well. So anyway, after being on his truck for about the 50,000 miles, we were having such a good time. I was like, you know what, let me stay on a little bit longer. It was good to go to all these different shippers and receivers, and that actually did pay dividends in the long run. One thing I'll say is that I probably learned more between 40 and 60,000 miles in training before more than what I learned in the first 30,000 miles. So what do I regret about it? Once I stayed on a while, I started looking at, definitely going lease. And if you're going to go lease, you have to open up, start a business, LLC, all that kind of stuff. And there's really no need to start a business at the end of the year if you can avoid it. So at a certain point, I was just like, you know what, let me just chill out on this. I'll hang out till January, get off, and then start the business and all that kind of stuff. Well, things kind of changed, and he ended up leaving Prime. And sometime in this November area is when I ended up having to upgrade. So not being able to benefit from starting the business fresh at the beginning of a year, it was a mistake and a regret of mine to stay on that truck as long as I did, because at a certain point, without having done what I wanted to do, those extra miles and time was basically just separating me from the money I was making leasing. So that is a regret of mine, was to stay on my trainer's truck as long as I did. Now, I think it did pay dividends in the long run, but still, maybe just a tad bit too long. Another regret that I have, when I upgraded, gonna go lease, it had been said that if you wanted to do a lease purchase with Prime, you had to have lease for 3 months. But I think they were going to waive it at that time or something like that. I was going to be allowed to do it right out the box. And in a moment of hesitation, self-doubt, I was like, you know what? Let me just try this lease out first. Let me just dip my toe in the pool before I do this lease purchase. So went ahead, did the regular lease, and I regret it every day after about the first month. And here's why. I've been in this lease for about coming up on 8 months. Now, every month there's an amount of money that's set aside for your lease completion bonus. At this time, that bonus is around $3,600. And it's probably going to be in that 40, in the fours, maybe even low fives by the time my truck comes in another month and a half. Maybe not quite that high, but either way, even the $3,600 is enough. The problem is I'm not going to be able to realize that money. That's going to be money that I'm basically throwing away for when I actually do the lease purchase. So, two things that hesitation did was I could have already been 8 months into my lease purchase by now and only had, a year, 2 years and 4 months to have the truck paid off. So that was a wasted 8 months. It's going to be closer to it's going to be closer to almost 10 months by the time my truck comes in. So basically wasted time on that. And like I said, the money that I will be throwing away on the lease completion bonus. Now, I will be obviously making that money back up. I mean, I was talking to somebody about it, and they were like, well, why don't you just finish your lease? Well, if I really want to lose some money, I would finish out the lease and then start over at that point. So that is a regret of mine there. Some of the mistakes I've made, a lot of those are just mistakes that I've made recently, kind of accepting a teammate on my truck and trying to run 2 clocks. I've made some mistakes as far as the clock management goes and some of the load choices I've made. As far as the clock management goes, for the most part, that's going to kind of work itself out. There's always going to be a chance for somebody to, usually there's a chance for one of the 2 drivers to get a rolling 34 at any given point. So for example, you get to a shipper or receiver, let's say 10 hours early. Let's say I'm driving, you shut down. The next morning you go to the shipper or receiver. I would start my clock again and then drive out that clock, and then he will have had off about 3 drive shifts or close to 34 hours by the time that has been done. Now what's happened is we've had a lot of these loads that have been super long, and we've been driving, we haven't taken the approach of running 9 hours, things like that, and that caught up with us on one of the last loads we did as a team. We actually had to shut down and do a 34 to get our hours back. So that's kind of a mistake that I made as far as clock management on team driving. I wasn't a team driver. Now I know. As far as the loads go, some of the mistakes I've made, and some of these aren't mistakes because my fleet manager, asked me if I wanted to get a different load. And one thing I'm trying to do is make sure things balance out. I mean, it would be easy for me to take a bunch of short loads for more money and then have my teammate not be making money on miles. So rather than that, I try to balance it out. So for example, we were going to get a load going from Georgia to California. That particular load was paying well, dollars per day, but dollars per mile, it was like under, I think it was right at $1, maybe 99 cents. And I emailed or texted, message, whatever, my fleet manager, and I said, I'm not too excited about this load. Before I, decline it or whatever, I just wanted to know what your thinking was on it. And he said, I know the load doesn't really pay all that well, but there's a lot of good freight coming out of California. If you'd like, I could find you a load that's a little bit more profitable. Whatever you want is up to you. Now, my fleet manager is the man. I'm going to tell you that right now. So, I just said, you know what, man? Since you are so open to this, I'm going to go ahead and rock this load and, just get it done. And that's fine. But when those long loads for low cents per mile start stacking up on you, that's when it becomes a problem. So we got a load that next week. We were in Vermont. We were getting a load going from Vermont to Henderson, Nevada. Same situation. That was like 97 cents a mile. And I took that load because we were trying to get my co-driver home at the time, and he's home right now. But I would not have taken that load had there not been a reason behind doing that. So I don't mind necessarily taking the longer loads for lower cents per mile as long as the dollars per day makes sense. But I do think it's a mistake to stack a bunch of those up on top of each other. So that has been a mistake that I've made, that when I come off of home time fresh and everything, we're gonna kind of make sure that we settle into something a little bit better as far as that goes. It looks like my people are ready for me to open up the doors and back in. Those are pretty much the only regrets. Real quick, one of the other things that I regret doing was I had a trailer door that the chain was broke on. I tried to tape it open when I was backing up. The door kind of opened up and I ended up messing up the inside of the trailer, the insulation, so that cost me a little bit of money right there. So those are pretty much my only mistakes and regrets. Thanks for stopping by No Hippie Truck and Transportation. I need to get loaded and get rolling. I'm out.